ever wondered why achieving success isn't always straightforward? You're in the right place. Our ways of achieving success are as unique as our brains, and what works for someone else might not work for you. So, how do we tap into the right ones for us and avoid trying to pursue success on someone else's terms? You're listening to the Ambition Incubator podcast, and I'm your host, Deirdre Morrison. I specialise in facilitating personal development using applied neuroscience. I'm going to be talking to and introducing you to some interesting individuals, their careers, their challenges, and the changes that they've made along the way. If you want actionable tips, inspiring journeys, and amazing insights to help you unlock your full potential, then stay with us for this episode. Today, I'm talking to the ever insightful and generous Jan Cavelle. We look at the changes that are rapidly taking place in the workplace and what that might mean for your business. Jan, who of course is a legendary entrepreneur in her own right, now dedicates a lot of her resources and time to sharing that experience with others who are on an entrepreneurial journey. And Jan has recently released a second book packed with her ample wisdom and experience, which is called Start for Success. Jan, it is wonderful to have you back. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on again, and not only to be the first guest that has come back for a second time, but also the first video guest. So here we go. It's a whole new page for the Ambition Incubator.
It's such an honour to be both firsts, and it's just lovely to be back with you.
Oh, thank you so much. Jan, as we were talking earlier, we started talking about a subject that I know you're very interested in, and that is the idea of the things that have changed over the last while, and especially in relation to people who are at the stage of setting up a business of their own. Is there, do you want to give us a little bit of a feel for what you're thinking about that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a funny one, Deirdre, because I had just got my last book, which we spoke about before, so I won't bother to recap on, coming out at the beginning of COVID. And so in some ways I was sitting here thinking, that feels like almost another world. It changed so fast that watching from a distance and observing, I guess, the business world as well as personal world, the speed that stuff was changing. I mean, obviously people went initially off work, and people were attempting to work from home. Companies were trying to cope with that. And the whole sort of ricochet effect, so much has changed as a result of that. I do find it fascinating. Again, from an observer point of view, I don't think I'd find it so fascinating if I was at the coal front. I mean, entrepreneurs always have my admiration, but they have it 10 times over now.
Yeah, and I suppose the playing field really has changed because, like you say, things changed with such speed, and they have left a mark and left many marks, I guess. And the way we work has pretty much changed forever. So what are the things that I know that the new book is really for those people who are at the stage of starting up? What are the things that they need to be aware of now that they wouldn't necessarily have thought about before?
Well, I think culture, for one, was always important, but there's so many facets to that. I'd pick out three main ones, maybe, I guess. But firstly, we've very much gone global talent. People are aware that they can use people from all over the world, which, I think they would have hesitated to do before. Oh, well, we'd rather have somebody down the road. But companies that are thriving are looking in unexpected places, because it doesn't make much difference if you're dealing with somebody or remotely as to whether they're down the road or 5,000 miles away. So you could be in Australia and have a designer or a software guy in Orkney. It's a completely different attitude. So I think that global talent pool has opened up, which is a good thing. I think with culture, generally, there is this struggle to adapt to, which way are they going to go? Are they going to go hybrid? Are they going to go back to the office? Or are they going to stay remote? And for
Hmm.
some companies, it's been very easy. I mean, some companies were already remote prior to it, so obviously they were laughing. Some companies did manage the hybrid transition
Hmm.
because it suited them in many ways, and some companies have absolutely struggled with it.
Mm.
So I think that's been one of the huge challenges, and of course that's gone on because we had the period when they went in, everybody went into home working, and when people came out, it was, do we adjust, do we not adjust?
Mm. Mm.
And it changed, I think, to bring it on to the third thing, that changed people's attitudes towards work, I think, in a major way. People started, firstly, a lot of people enjoyed the mix between home working, some didn't, but a lot of people did, and they liked working when, when they wanted to work, fitting it round
Hmm.
their family life, earning but having a life, or and it
Mm.
started people questioning whether you should just get up in the morning and go to work at 9 o'clock and come home at 5 o'clock and cook for dinner. That
Mm.
just wasn't what people wanted anymore, which means that companies have had to change dramatically to appeal to anybody to work there.
I see exactly where that's coming from. Yeah, it's almost like having that ability to better integrate work and life in a more seamless fashion.
Yeah,
And people don't want to give that back. I mean, I can completely
why
understand
would you?
why they wouldn't. So, I suppose the question to follow up from that then would be, which are the sectors that you see that are there trends in the sectors that are struggling with that, and are they really do they can they do anything to make that easier for people?
I mean, I think so. I think some sectors necessarily are struggling in that, for manufacturing, for example. I mean, you know, they've just got to go automated or go out of business. I think. I mean,
Mm.
it's changed too dramatically. It's really not good for manufacturers. Which is a pity because Britain is a good stronghold of manufacturing. Not that it's ever really been particularly lauded for it, but it was traditionally. I mean, I think it's nice to see hospitality back,
Hmm.
because I think the people there cope better because they actually like the social aspect of being in hospitality. So I don't think there's as much of a problem with people not being able to go.
Mm.
I mean, tech companies are obviously easier, but not all tech companies want remote. We've seen some of the big boys. I mean, Mr. Musk does not want his employees to be remote.
Very timely.
Indeed, yes. So,
um,
it doesn't necessarily cut clean across the sectors,
it'll be really interesting to see how that's all played
won't
out
it?
by the time this goes
I was going to
live.
say, by the time we'll know more. Yeah,
Yeah, a day is a long time in Twitter.
isn't it just? Yes. But whatever happens, I don't think he'll be saying, "Oh, well, I've changed my mind, work remotely."
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Well, that I suppose actually is an interesting point as well. When an organization takes a stand on something, how I guess they do need to have a little flexibility and know when to back down on things like that. And that might not always come easily to an organization where they've had a sort of a top down structure.
I think that's very true. I mean, I think, some people are finding it very hard and panicking. There's this constant, you must be a superman if you're an entrepreneur approach to
Mm.
life.
Mm.
And actually, entrepreneurs are only human too. And they've got huge amounts on their plate, trying to
Mm-hmm.
survive, trying to fight through, trying to work out how to find new markets or whatever that's been
Mm.
caused. And the vision of having to completely rejangle how they run their team as well is often, when they've worked out an easy way to do it, and surely that would be okay. But it
Mm-hmm.
isn't anymore. Um, and the result we've seen, of course, is another thing I was going to mention is we had the Great Resignation, and now we're getting what do they call it? The quick quitters. Have you heard of
The
that
quick
one?
quitters.
Quick
No,
quitters.
tell me
I
about that
can
one.
barely say it, but people are staying very short times in a job now
Uh,
because they're questioning whether it's delivering enough all the time and moving on. So,
yeah, that is interesting. I mean, I guess we know that it takes a certain amount of time to settle in and to, find your way around something. So I'm wondering, is there some new way of assessing this that maybe wasn't part of the toolkit that I would have had when I was back in that stage of life?
I know, you were given a desk and told to get on with it, if you were lucky. Remember working on a floor at one stage, but um, no, I mean, I think a lot of it is down to the inboarding. You're right. I think clever companies who succeed in wooing their staff well
Yeah,
do a very, very effective inboarding program, which
yeah,
means a lot of money spent on it. But they can weed out very quickly the people who don't fit. And often, I mean, some of the big boys give golden handshakes to say, if you don't feel it's for you, if you're not a fit, we'll pay you off. We hired you even in the first few weeks, which
mm,
they reckon is cheaper than having somebody wrong stay, which I sort of
yeah.
get. Um, but they spend a lot of time embedding the culture because it's all about culture. You can train somebody to do something, but if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't fit with your culture, they're going to do so much damage. But equally, if they're happy there and they fit, they ain't going to go anywhere, providing they're being well looked after as well.
And you raise like a couple of really fascinating points here, and I think the conversation is going to diverge a little bit and then come back round. Um, so one of them is about the process, the onboarding process, the hiring process, the investment that takes, and especially for a small company, especially for a new company, where it really can make or break to get that right person. I mean, there's no doubt a best practice or a set of best practices for people, and is that something that you talk about, or is that something we can point some people to another source for? Or it really seems like such an important one to get right, doesn't
Yes,
it?
it does. I mean, I think, for very small companies, maybe first hire, second hire, you've got to think, welcome them. It's as
Mm,
simple as that. They have got to feel that they are so loved, wanted, needed, and that they are important from well, actually, before they even join. There should be lots of
mm,
contact before they join, sending them welcome messages, sending them details of stuff that's going on in the company or
mm,
whatever, but interaction so that you can start that at midnight as we often work and what have you, and send it out as a civilized hour. But you can actually start the pre-welcome before they even get there, so they start feeling welcome. But it's just silly things the first day, to have
yeah,
their computer screen come up and say, "Welcome, Deirdre."
yeah.
We're thrilled you're here. A coffee mug with their name on it. Anything that immediately, and it's all very trivial, but the fact remains is that people apparently make decisions about whether they're going to stay in the first 48 hours. They may stay another 6 hours, 6 months, but that, it sets as a, this is great, or okay.
Mm. On the flip side of that, I mean, it's all very well, with the outreach aspect of onboarding, but I'm thinking about the inside job as well. That the culture has to be welcoming on the inside. That people have to be excited and ready for this new person to come on board, and getting them up to speed as well. Is that something that is an issue, or is that in the dim and distant past as
I
well?
think a lot of it comes from the clarity of the values. If you've
Mm,
really nailed your values and you know exactly those 5 words say that, are
mm,
absolutely you, then you can look at somebody and they can look at you and know whether they're a fit. If
mm,
you've got, sort of diligence, endeavor, excellence as your values, that is a certain atmosphere. and
Mm.
it will appeal to some people. It might be highly academic or
Mm.
research or whatever. If you've got fun, a bit crazy, something else, it might be much more a fit with a tech company.
Mm.
It doesn't, there's no right or wrong, providing it's true and from the heart. But
Yeah.
then you see if there's a good fit, and the culture
Mm.
becomes exciting, and every decision you make, sort of you can check and think, is that in tune with the culture? And that goes
Mm.
down to people too.
Yeah, one of my previous guests actually, this just came up as you were talking. She made the point that a lot of startups and new businesses hire replicas of themselves, when in actual fact what they need is someone to balance out their existing skill set. What do you think of that idea?
I think it's certainly an alternative. I mean, there's lots. It's a bit like I was saying about overseas, sort of workforce. There's so
Mm.
many opportunities to do diverse things, to look at what you don't do well and find somebody for
Mm.
that, rather than take somebody on full time. People are hesitant
Mm.
about taking on
Of
somebody full
course.
time for lots of reasons. None of us know
Hmm.
what the future's going to hold.
Yeah, not only that, I guess, but if you've got a team of freelancers or part timers, you're getting a much broader skill base than if you are taking on one person tied to one location with.
That's very true. That's very true. But of course, equally, you don't have quite the knowledge,
Mm.
of and the surety that they're going to be there the next day. I mean, I've had this happen to me because I use freelancers now, and you've got this wonderful relationship. You're working with somebody for 3 months in, South Africa or whatever, and you think, oh well, I'll finish that job tomorrow, and you send them an email, never hear from them again. Something else has happened in their lives and they've moved on.
Yeah, yeah,
Which of
that.
course you wouldn't get with somebody full time. It's probably going to come in tomorrow. If you well, or at least you'd have a sneaking suspicion if it's going to go wrong.
Yeah, if they've quitted, quickly quit. How do you say that?
I know, it's a nightmare. Quit quitting.
So the new book, Jan, is part of a completion, I guess,
Mm,
of scaling for success. So, can you give us a flavour of what this new one is about and who should be reading?
absolutely. I mean, it was, you're quite right. Scale for Success was always sort of in my mind one of a pair, because scale, as
Mm.
you know, sort of went very much from 1 million to 10 million market wise. And I wanted to do the first half,
Mm.
and, take people from, I'm thinking about it, to two or three. And
Mm.
so that was always at the back of my mind. And then I saw all this change going on, and I thought, I've got, I've got to do this. I've got to do this. This is so exciting, because you can look at those changes. You can give back, because I think more and more people are going self-employed, and I think we'll see a lot more next year because there will be more people out of work, and more people getting unsure and wanting balance and everything else. So I think there'll be a shift to starting up, and hopefully this will help people. And also, as we're talking about, all these changes, we've got culture changes, we've got, for a lot of people, yes, lots of people are techie, but lots of people aren't. Is it necessary? Is a question that I find really interesting.
Mm.
How techie do you have to be to have a business these days?
Can you scale without it?
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. I mean, and how costly is it? I think is another big thing. I had a
Mm.
fascinating conversation doing my research with a guy in Switzerland who specializes in tech, and he says, because he deals with a lot of sort of countries as well as companies, and
Mm.
so he's quite high powered. But he says everybody, countries as well as companies, come to him and say, we need to be more tech. Well, in what way? Don't know. We need to be more tech. And I can believe it, can't you?
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean, there's so many aspects to that as well, though. I mean, whether you are talking about the tech that
Mm,
goes with your maybe your targeting and sales process, or the tech that goes with your checkouts and your sales and your website, or the tech that goes with the manufacturing that we mentioned earlier. They're very different.
Absolutely. Yeah. Very true. Yes, I mean you've got, as you say, there's sort of AI to robotics to automation to, a little app on your phone. You're absolutely right.
Mm,
But I think the point he was making was, certainly for office procedures, what he sees a
mm,
lot is what people mean is they're not performing all that smoothly. You know, what business does perfection, but they can see everything's a bit clunky, and so they think it must be lack of tech. And he'll go in and look at it, and actually their systems are clunky. It doesn't matter whether you automate them, but unless they sort out what they do and the order they do it in, it'll still be clunky.
mm.
But they could have a bill for 5 grand or whatever for the tech. So in some ways we can get overexcited about the problems that tech solves. I think you still have to get the basics right.
Yeah, yeah, that's very, very true. And it is one of those rabbit holes. I guess people think, if we throw money at it,
Exactly.
it'll resolve itself.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily true, is it?
No, very much so. And of course, there's lots and lots of people willing to take your money to sell you hugely expensive tech.
So, where should people start looking at these things then? I mean, what is the solution that is not necessarily the tech solution?
They want to look at literally their processes. If they
Mm,
take, sort of say, one customer from a moment they had a contact with that customer in marketing, right through to where they are today, and they look at
mm,
what worked, what didn't, that whole journey.
mm,
How easy was it for them to connect from a website? Did they go away and think about it? Did they say anything nice along the way? Did you
mm.
nearly lose contact with them? Did you have to ask for their email? What were the problems with the order? The same thing. Really examine in depth one, maybe two customer journeys from start to finish, and then you begin to see that for some reason somebody had to walk round the block 5 times to process that order, or you know, um, just the stupid things which become habit and
Yeah,
actually aren't needed at all.
yeah, yeah. And that, of course, that's like such a drain on
Absolutely,
resources.
yeah. If two people are doing the same thing, which often happens, or the communication between them is bad, that
Yeah.
can be sorted out before you even spend any money in tech. And it's really important that it is sorted out because otherwise the tech is going to be less effective.
Yeah, you're trying to fill a leaky bucket.
Indeed, that's precisely what I mean. Well said. Yes.
So, Jan, you've also I've been really enjoying your stuff on LinkedIn. By the way, you're such a wonderful writer. And is there anything that you think people should be thinking about in terms of their own social media? Because people I think tend to at that startup stage think they've got to be everywhere, they've got to be doing everything. What's your approach to this?
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, you're very kind. I mean, LinkedIn is lovely for me because I can just write. I love to write. So, sort of, oh, I've got an idea about that. Oh, that person annoyed me the other day. What can I make a LinkedIn post about that? Get it off my chest. So for me, LinkedIn is lovely. And oddly enough, I used to love Twitter. Jury out as to whether I shall stay loving Twitter. But the other two, I must admit that I'm on Instagram and
Facebook?
Facebook precisely, and I do have an unused TikTok account. But but
I would love to see how that played out.
oh, you know, I mean, it doesn't help, I guess, that I've lived
Yeah.
in two houses in the past 20 years, and both are in mobile phones, black spots. So I'm not a very mobile phone person, and of course, those apps only work on a mobile phone.
Yeah.
So the fact that when you go shopping, you need to catch up with your entire social media is not all that brilliant. But I think I think people are unsure about Twitter, clearly. They're also unsure about Facebook now.
Mm,
But the principle hasn't changed. Sorry, I'm wandering way off question.
it's fine.
The principle hasn't changed. Try, three or four markets that you think would be right. Measure the
Mm,
results over 1, 2, maybe 3 months, and you'll start to see immediately where you get hits from a website or communication or even orders. And don't bother too much with the ones that don't pay off. It's all about return, you know.
and I suppose that's the other thing, and this ties back into the tech as well, is that one of the things that we are really, I guess, faced with every time we want to make something known on socials these days is the idea of paid strategies versus organic strategies. And again, these are big decisions for a new
They
business.
are, I mean, investing in, that's the way the platforms are pushing us to pay. But it is very costly to run campaigns and not necessarily effective. You want to be very sure you've got right platform, and then develop some expert advice on. It is possible to teach yourself. I mean, I have a friend who's built up unbelievable following on Facebook for his business, self-taught.
Mm.
But he said anybody I know who's done that has gone through all sorts of failure times, so it's going to cost you one way or another.
Yeah, and that's actually another lovely point, I guess, as we start to wrap up, is just this idea that there is a runway needed, that people are going to have to dedicate
Yeah,
time. If they're going from a standing start to a successful business, that is not typically an overnight
it is
process.
not. No,
And we talked about this the last time,
we
didn't we?
did.
I still remember your story of the fax machine under the stairs. So, what I guess, just as an aside to that as well, then we'll try and bundle all this into one. Is this still a time of opportunity for new business? Is what is out there, and would your feeling be that with a reasonable idea, people can still go for it and make something of
Oh,
this?
I think undoubtedly. I mean, we are still seeing big success stories, and I think there's. I mean, the sort of market trader has existed since, man was around roughly, and people's played
Mm,
swapsies and did chores for other people, and, who pays what for what has always been
hmm
going, and that's not going to change. It's the way we do it as solo entrepreneurs or building businesses might adapt. How we pay for things, and will we all be on Bitcoin in 10 years' time? Whatever,
Good question.
or back to markets and swapping cabbages. You know,
Nothing wrong with a bit of
well,
cabbage.
indeed, no, probably rather have cabbage and Bitcoin right now, I think. But but yeah, I mean, but the principle, yeah, there's always opportunity for people who read the markets right, see what other people want, and
Hmm
deliver it in a way that really connects with that market.
Yeah, yeah. Jan, that is absolutely beautiful. Thank you. I'm wondering if you can give us a reminder of where people should go to hear more about what you're doing and find out more about the book and so on as well.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Deirdre. I am found at jancavelle.co.uk.
Wonderful. And that's Cavelle, spelled Cavelle.
That's absolutely right. And by the time we finish, or if this comes out, the book should be out on Amazon and all good bookshops too.
All right, we will put all the links and everything in there as well. So, definitely, if you are the sort of person who is at the stage where you are about to go for it, this is one you should have on your desk. Jan, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure as always to talk to you, and I'll see you on the other side.
Indeed. Thank you so, so much.
Hey, thanks for listening. I would love to know what you've taken from this episode. It's always really interesting to hear your insights and what action they help you to take. Making progress involves making change, from how we do things to how we view things. We're constantly revising and tweaking our approach to optimize our results. As a specialist in applied neuroscience methods, I have consistently seen that the more we understand the science behind how our brain works, the more control and finesse we have in our actions, our reactions, and our interactions. And of course, that works for us as individuals and as teams, and it benefits ourselves and everyone around us, whether we're at work or at home. Now, if you'd like to discover the power of applied neuroscience for yourself, then follow me on LinkedIn or visit the website at neurocreative.studio to explore the possibilities. And don't forget, hit subscribe so that you'll always know when we've got a new and interesting interview available for you to listen to.